The Sibling's Vengeance, Unmasking the Pregnant Widow's Deadly Deception and Exposing a Killer's Pattern. My older brother's former partner manipulated my entire family into thinking I was unbalanced after I found a concealed note proving she ended his life for a large financial payout. So I connected with her past victims' kin and exposed her deadly routine. I was 2 when my brother's pregnant former companion, Eliza, moved in. My brother, Alex, had been gone for 3 weeks, a tragic accident no one anticipated. One day, we were planning what movie to watch on the New Year's festival, and 6 days later, I was standing outside the morning service, clutching my comfort plushie. I was sitting at our dining table when Mom announced that Eliza, Alex's ex-companion, would be moving in. "She's 4 months along," Mom said, as if that explained everything. "It's what Alex would have desired. Let's make her feel welcome." So, I tried to make her feel welcome. When Eliza walked in carrying just 2 bags, her hand on her slightly noticeable abdomen, I helped her wheel them into the apartment. She never called our parents Mom and Dad when Alex was around, but suddenly she was sobbing into my mother's embrace, saying, "Mom, I don't know what I'd do without you." They gave her Alex's old sleeping space immediately. At the evening meal, she took a seat without asking, and Dad instructed me to give her Alex's favorite drinking vessel for her non-caffeinated beverage. "I know this is tough, darling," Mom said when she caught me staring, "but Eliza and the child need us." The next few months were awful. I hid the unbearable weight of sorrow under professional focus and fake expressions. I stayed silent when my parents transferred a large portion of my savings to Alex's child's fund, without a second thought. When Eliza asked to wear Alex's garments, I said yes through clenched teeth. Said it made her feel closer to him. My parents gave her everything: his personal transport, his computer, access to his financial accounts, all for the child. Mom didn't notice when I started struggling with work and wearing long sleeves. She was too busy planning child celebrations and pre-birth appointments. Meanwhile, I was playing the same retro music tune on my digital assistant for hours every day. Good Day Sunshine, Alex's favorite. Every night at the evening meal, I smiled while she sat in his chair and told stories about him that sounded fabricated. I still started chat games in our message thread every night, even though I knew I was just playing with myself, and my parents yelled at me for going to the burial ground and refusing to let go of the past, so I always went alone with my plushie, resting beside his grave like it was his favorite spot. Eliza tried to give me counsel like Alex would have, but Alex never gave counsel. He just listened and made silly remarks until I felt better. The breaking point came on what would have been Alex's 25th year milestone. The Arctic Foxes, Alex's favorite musical group, was having a performance nearby, and I was planning to sing all the lyrics to his favorite tunes. But when I mentioned it at breakfast, Eliza's face hardened. "Actually, I've already secured the riverfront location for my gender announcement gathering on the same day." Alex would want us celebrating new life, not focusing on tragedy. I begged my parents to let me go to the performance and the announcement gathering. Mom looked at me like I was irrational. "How could you try to spoil this for Eliza?" Dad slammed his drinking vessel down. "Alex's child is our future. You need to stop dwelling in the past. You will be at the gathering. You will smile, and you will stop making everything about your sadness." Something in me finally broke. Alex didn't even want offspring yet. He told me he wanted to wait until, well, Alex isn't here to desire anything, is he? Eliza interrupted, her flawless grieving mask slipping for just a second. I knew there was no point arguing with them, so I sighed and went to take a rest in my space. When I woke up at 1 a.m., I stumbled over to my storage unit to look at my concealed container of Alex's belongings. Except it wasn't there. It was like it had vanished. Performance tickets, pictures, the goofy companion accessory he made me had all disappeared. I brought it up at breakfast the next day. Eliza just smiled. I gave them away because you were having difficulty accepting the loss. My parents nodded in agreement. I took another 4-hour rest. The gender announcement was torment. Eliza announced the child would be Alex Jr. Zeno, and everyone made soft noises while I wanted to yell. That night, while following my routine of checking his online profile and wondering what I could have done differently, I realized something. I didn't want to forget Alex's sound, so I did what any reasonable adult would do in that situation. I accessed his computer to look for sound files he might have of him speaking. But what I found made me ill. Search history full of queries about leaving a pregnant companion. Captured screens of Eliza's text to someone saved as Mr. X work with hearts, and planning secret meetings. Alex had been monitoring her whereabouts. He'd figured out she was lying about where she went. There were diary entries about feeling confined, about Eliza mentioning his life payout plan too often, about his beverage tasting unusual. The last entry was dated the day before he passed. The letter in our location. Our location, the upstairs storage space where we used to hide during Mom and Dad's arguments. I waited until 2 a.m. and crept up there using my phone's illumination. Behind the loose panel where we used to stash treats, there was an enclosure with my name on it. If you're reading this, something happened to me. I need you to know the truth about Eliza and the child. My hands shook as I unfolded the note. Alex's handwriting stared back at me, slightly shaky, but unmistakably his. The child isn't mine. I overheard Eliza on the phone with Mr. Y admitting it, and I've been recording her medicating my beverage. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I pressed my hand over my mouth to muffle the quiet cry threatening to escape. Alex had known he'd been trying to protect himself, trying to gather proof, and somehow it had all gone wrong. Footsteps creaked on the stairs below. I shoved the note under my bedding just as my sleeping space door opened without a tap. Eliza stood there in one of Alex's old jackets, her hand resting on her abdomen. "Can't sleep either?" she asked sweetly, but her eyes examined my space methodically, taking in every detail. The open clothing unit door, the slightly out-of-place floor covering where I'd been moving, the way I sat too stiffly on my bedding. She walked in uninvited and sat down next to me, the bedding dipping under her weight. I fought the urge to move away as she sighed dramatically. "I've been having bad dreams about Alex," she said, watching my face carefully. "He told me you two had a special hidden location where you used to play as kids." My blood turned to ice. The upstairs storage space? She knew about the upstairs storage space. I forced myself to shrug casually. "We had lots of hidden locations when we were little. Childish things." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "He was very specific about this one. Said you two would hide there during your parents' disagreements. Such a lovely memory." My phone vibrated on the bedside unit, a text from an unknown number. Eliza's gaze followed mine to the screen, but I grabbed it before she could see. "You should get some sleep," I said, standing up. "Big day tomorrow with your medical consultation." She didn't move. "You know, grief can make people imagine things, see conspiracies where there aren't any. Your parents are worried about you." "I'm fine." "Are you?" She stood slowly, smoothing down Alex's jacket. "Because they mentioned you've been saying some troubling things about me? About the child?" The menace hung in the air between us. I stayed quiet. "Sleep well," she said finally, pausing at my door. "Oh, and that loose board floor in your clothing unit, you might want to secure that. Wouldn't want you to fall." After she left, I checked my phone with trembling hands. The text was from Ria, my best companion, using a number I didn't recognize. "Got temporary phone. My sister Mia saw Eliza at the medical drug facility buying a sedative with Alex's prescription 2 days before he passed. Meet me before work." I barely slept, clutching Alex's note under my pillow. When morning came, I pulled myself downstairs to find my parents and Eliza already at the breakfast table. "Perfect timing," Mom said brightly. "We have something to discuss." Dad cleared his throat. Eliza brought to our attention that you've been struggling more than we realized. We've decided family counseling would be beneficial. Starting today, Eliza added, spreading butter on her toast. I've already made the appointment with Dr. Green. She's wonderful. We were in the same college group. Of course she was. I have work, I protested. Already cleared it with your manager, Mom said. This is more important. At my workplace, I'd barely made it to my desk when my phone buzzed with an urgent text. Please come to the main office immediately, my manager's text read. Other colleagues stared as I walked to the office, my face heating up. My manager sat behind her desk looking concerned with a human resources representative beside her. Have a seat, she said gently. We received a call from your family about some troubling behavior. The HR representative will be checking in with you daily from now on. What troubling behavior? I asked. The HR representative leaned forward. Your temporary guardian mentioned you've been fixated on elaborate theories about your siblings passing, making accusations. We want to help you process your sorrow in a healthy way. Temporary guardian. The word made me want to scream. She's not my temporary guardian, I said quietly, and I'm processing fine. They exchanged looks. Daily check-ins, my manager repeated. Not negotiable. After work, I rushed home to find Eliza in Alex's room. She had his journals spread across the bedding, systematically ripping out pages. What are you doing? I lunged for the nearest journal. She grabbed my wrist, her nails digging in hard enough to leave marks. These pages might upset your parents. I'm protecting them. Those are Alex's private thoughts. Her grip tightened and she leaned close enough that I could smell her fragrance, something flowery and strong that made my stomach turn. You don't want to make me upset, she whispered. Not in my condition. I yanked my arm away, nursing my bruised wrist. Several ripped pages fluttered to the floor. Entries about marks on his arms, about feeling trapped, about Eliza's aggression. That evening, my phone lit up with notifications. Eliza had started a group text with our extended relations, concerned about our dear family member's emotional stability. She's been having false beliefs about me and making wild claims. Sorrow manifests in strange ways. Please be understanding with her during this difficult time. Uncle Ron replied immediately. I've noticed her acting strangely too, happy to help get her the assistance she needs. Aunt Pat, poor thing, losing Alex has clearly been too much. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I opened Alex's online account on my computer. I still remembered his security code from when he'd asked me to check his electronic mail once. His location history was still there. Captured screens flew from my phone to the digital storage as I documented Eliza's drug facility visits, her routine, her timeline. My fingers moved quickly, knowing she could change the security codes any moment. A message popped up from Mr. Y's companion, Dana. Hey, strange thing. Eliza just showed up at our apartment demanding to talk to Mr. Y. He locked himself in the sleeping space and won't come out. She was banging on the door, screaming about needing to get their story consistent. Thought you should know. The next day's counseling session was terrible. Dr. Green, a polished woman who looked like she'd stepped out of Eliza's online profile, sat across from us with a sympathetic expression. I understand you've been struggling with some envy issues, she said to me. It's natural to feel replaced when a new child is coming. I'm not envious, I said flatly. Eliza dabbed at her eyes with a paper cloth. She's been saying I harmed Alex, that I'm lying about the child. It's been so hard. Dr. Green made notes. False thinking can be a symptom of complex sorrow. These fantasies about Eliza stem from your inability to accept Alex's decision. I noticed she'd already written something before I'd even spoken. Pulling out my phone, I pretended to check the time but snapped a photo of her notes. Later, enlarging it, I'd see she'd distorted everything. An old text to Alex saying, I dislike her, about an old colleague, was recorded as being about Eliza. After the session, Eliza created a shared family schedule on everyone's phones. Every minute of my day was planned. For your protection, she explained to my parents, so we know where you are if you need help. Work, counseling, home, supervised activity period, family evening meal, rest by 9 p.m., no changes allowed. When Rhea tried to come over that weekend, Eliza met her at the door. "I'm sorry, but she's not allowed guests right now," Eliza said sweetly. "She's been having some emotional stability difficulties, and her counselor thinks spending time with people who encourage her obsessions would be harmful." "Encourage what?" Rhea demanded. My parents appeared behind Eliza. "Please respect our family's privacy during this difficult time," Dad said firmly. I watched from my window as Rhea left, her face showing frustration. My phone vibrated. Another unknown number. "Meet me at the old park on Oak Street. Midnight. Bring Alex's journal photos. R.I." The next week was overwhelming. The HR representative dutifully checked on me daily, her concern genuine but misplaced. During one check-in, she mentioned Eliza had called, worried about threats I'd allegedly made. "I'm required to report these concerns," she said gently, "but I want to hear your perspective." "I never threatened anyone," I said. She showed me an electronic mail from Eliza with captured screens of texts I'd never sent, messages threatening to hurt her and the child if she didn't leave. They were clearly invented, but how could I prove it? That night, I sneaked out through my window and met Rhea at the abandoned park. She pulled me into a tight embrace. "I believe you," she whispered, "about everything." I showed her the photos I'd taken of Alex's journal entries, the marks on his arms, the dated entries about Eliza's aggression. One entry made us both gasp. "She threatened to make it look like I hurt her if I try to leave. Showed me marks she gave herself. Said no one would believe me. She's done this before." There was a photo attached to the page. Eliza's arms covered in marks, but the angle was clearly wrong for someone else to have caused them. "This is proof of coercion," Rhea breathed. "We need to document everything." We spent an hour photographing every page, every entry, uploading everything to multiple digital storage accounts. Rhea gave me one of her temporary phones to keep hidden. "My mom's companion is a legal representative," she said. "We're going to figure this out." Walking home, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe Alex's truth would finally come out. The next morning, Sam, one of Alex's colleagues, pulled me aside at the grocery facility. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. The week before Alex passed, Eliza came to our workplace crying about him mistreating her, made a huge scene. But after she left, I was in the vehicle area on break and saw her in her personal transport. She was laughing, like really laughing, taking self-portraits. It was odd. "Would you tell my parents that?" I asked desperately. He shifted uncomfortably. "I don't want to get involved with family issues. Please, Alex was your companion." He sighed. "I'll consider it." I started noticing patterns in Eliza's behavior. Nausea only during disagreements, energy for shopping excursions but too tired to help with household tasks, the abdomen that seemed to change sizes depending on what she wore. During family dinner, she pushed her food around, claiming queasiness. "The child's been so energetic today," she said, rubbing her stomach. But when Mom suggested she rest, Eliza perked up immediately when her phone vibrated. "Oh, Mr. Y is having a crisis. I should call him, for finality." She practically skipped out of the room. Later that week, Mr. Y's sister reached out through Rhea. We met at a beverage shop 2 cities away. "My companion's brother passed last year," she said quietly. "Dan Smith. Similar circumstances. Pregnant companion moved in with his family. After she left town when people started asking questions." My blood ran cold. "What was her name?" "Jenna White. But Dan mentioned she'd changed it once before." I created an unlisted blog that night documenting everything. The timeline, the proof, Alex's journal entries. I posted from the information center computer during my supervised activity period, erasing the history after each session. When Eliza tried to access my social media profiles, 2-step verification blocked her. I played ignorant when she complained to my parents about technical difficulties. "Maybe the child's influence is making you forget security codes," I suggested innocently. Her mask slipped for just a second, pure fury flashing in her eyes before the sweet expression returned. A few days later, Mrs. Finch from down the street stopped me when I was taking out the waste. I've been meaning to tell someone, she said quietly. That night Alex passed, Eliza was at my house, borrowed my personal transport for an emergency around 2 a.m., brought it back 2 hours later with dirt on the tires. Thought it was strange. The pieces were assembling, the sedative, the borrowed vehicle, the timeline that didn't match Eliza's account. At the evening meal, Eliza announced she'd scheduled more family counseling. Dr. Green thinks intense treatment might be necessary, she said, not looking at me. There's a wonderful facility that specializes in sorrow-related issues. My parents exchanged worried glances. Let's see how the external counseling goes first, Mom said carefully. Eliza's hand went to her stomach. I just worry about the stress affecting the child. Alex would want his child to grow up in a calm environment. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted metallic liquid. Alex's child. The child that wasn't even his. That night, I heard Eliza on the phone in Alex's room, her voice low and urgent. The adult knows something. No, I can't just leave yet. The payout money. I know what we agreed, but this family has more than, don't threaten me. I pressed my ear against the wall, trying to hear more, but she must have moved away from the wall. The next morning, I woke to find my bruised wrist photographed and documented in a medical record on the kitchen table. Evidence of a recent injury, Eliza explained sadly to my parents. Dr. Green says the stress is escalating. I pulled up my sleeve. The marks were clearly finger indentations, but the photos were taken at an angle that made them look accidentally sustained. She grabbed me when I tried to save Alex's journals. Sweetheart, Mom said gently, Eliza showed us the monitoring footage from the corridor. You were alone when you went into Alex's room. What monitoring footage? We don't have cameras inside. Dad sighed. The new system Eliza installed for protection. I felt the boundaries closing in. She was rewriting reality, and everyone believed her version. But Alex's note was still hidden under my bedding. His truth was still there, waiting. And somewhere out there, Dan Smith's family had their own questions about a woman who might have been Jenna White before she became Eliza. The fight for Alex's truth was just beginning. I recognized Eliza's routine immediately. Public concern, private threats, isolation methods, exactly what Alex's journal had described. The realization made my skin crawl as I watched her presentation at breakfast, dabbing at fake tears while explaining to my parents how worried she was about my declining emotional state. Mia, the medical facility attendant who was Ria's sister, texted me during the lunch break. She'd checked the drug facility records and confirmed Eliza had picked up Alex's sedative prescription the day he passed. Monitoring footage showed her leaving with a full bottle, enough to end someone's life if mixed with alcohol. The timestamp matched perfectly with Mrs. Finch's account of Eliza borrowing her personal transport that night. Eliza must have sensed the boundaries closing in, because her next move was calculated. She showed up at Ria's mother's house with a container of homemade baked goods and tears streaming down her face. Ria watched from her sleeping space window as Eliza tried to convince her mother that I was having a mental collapse, that Ria was supporting dangerous false beliefs. But Ria had already warned her mother about Eliza's manipulation tactics. Her mother politely but firmly told Eliza that she trusted her daughter's judgment and asked her to leave. That small triumph gave me hope, but I knew I needed to protect the proof. I carefully removed Alex's note from under my bedding and photographed every word with Ria's temporary phone. The original went into a hygiene product box in my washroom, the one place Eliza wouldn't search. I uploaded the photos to 3 different digital storage accounts, each with different security codes, then cleared the phone's history. My parents decided to take me to the local security office for what they called a well-being check. They explained to the officer that they were concerned about my emotional stability, that I'd been making accusations about Eliza. The officer listened patiently, but explained that without evidence of immediate danger to myself or others, there was nothing he could do. I sat there silently, knowing that speaking up would only make me look more unstable. Alex's online gaming companion, Ken, had been following my unlisted blog. He sent a private message offering to share communication logs from Alex's final days. Alex had confided in him about feeling fearful, about Eliza's unpredictable moods, about finding marks on his arms he couldn't explain. Ken had captured screens of everything, including Alex's message the night before he passed, saying he was going to leave Eliza and stay with a friend. Mr. Y's sister showed me something that made my blood run cold. She'd found Eliza's old social media profiles under the name Jenna White. The photos were definitely her, just with different colored hair. There were posts about her companion, Dan, photos of them together, and then suddenly nothing. The account went silent right around the time Dan died from an unexpected overdose. She also had a newspaper clipping about Dan's passing. The article mentioned he'd recently increased his life payout plan and that his companion was pregnant. Sound familiar? The similarities were too obvious to ignore. Same substances, same circumstances, same routine of moving in with the grieving family. When my parents confronted me about the blog posts that were starting to circulate among Alex's friends, I stayed composed. I showed them one specific entry from Alex's journal where he wrote about being stared, about Eliza mentioning his life payout plan during arguments, about feeling like he couldn't leave. Dad's face changed as he read Alex's familiar handwriting, describing his fear. Eliza's response was quick. She announced she was moving up the commitment ceremony to my father. She claimed it would honor Alex's memory and provide stability for the child. The ceremony would be small, family only, in just 2 weeks. Once she had legal rights as Dad's wife, she'd have access to everything: the apartment, the financial accounts, the life payout plan on our entire family. Sam finally worked up the courage to tell my parents what he'd witnessed. He described Eliza's performance at Alex's workplace, how she'd sobbed about mistreatment in front of everyone, then laughed and took self-portraits in her personal transport afterward. He showed them monitoring footage from the vehicle area that supported his story. Mom's face went pale as she watched Eliza's change from injured party to triumphant individual in the span of minutes. Eliza's facade started slipping more frequently. When I refused to be in the commitment ceremony group, she cornered me in the corridor and sneered that no one had believed Alex either. The words escaped before she could stop them, an admission that she'd done this before. She quickly covered by claiming she meant no one believed Alex about wanting to wait to have children, but we both knew what she'd really meant. Mom began asking questions. Why did Eliza need access to Alex's life payout so urgently? Why was she pushing for such a quick commitment ceremony? Why did her stories about Alex keep changing? She pulled me aside one evening and asked about my concerns. For the first time in months, she actually listened. Mr. Y finally agreed to meet with me. He was terrified of Eliza, but knew he needed to tell the truth. He revealed that Eliza had admitted during their clandestine relationship that she was already pregnant when she met Alex. She'd targeted him specifically because she knew about his family's wealth, about the life payout plan his parents had taken out. Mr. Y had text messages proving everything, including Eliza begging him to leave with her the night before Alex passed. Dad started paying attention to details he'd previously ignored. Eliza's stories about Alex didn't match the son he'd known for 2 decades. Alex supposedly told her things he'd never mentioned to his family, had opinions that contradicted everything Dad knew about him. The more Dad thought about it, the less sense it made. Monitoring footage from our neighbor's entry camera became the conclusive proof. It showed Eliza leaving our apartment at 2 a.m. the night Alex passed, just as Mrs. Finch had said. She returned at 4 a.m., plenty of time to have driven to Alex's living space and back. Her alibi that she'd been asleep in the guest room all night was completely false. Rhea risked being disciplined to maintain our communication. She sneaked me a second temporary phone when the first one's power started failing, kept copies of all the evidence on portable memory sticks hidden around her room, and coordinated with the growing network of people who were starting to see through Eliza's deceptions. Mrs. Finch offered to let me study at her house in the afternoons. It became my safe haven, where I could meet with allies, plan our next steps, and work on documenting the truth without Eliza's watch. Mrs. Finch had never liked Eliza, had always found her tears too convenient and her sorrow too dramatic. Despite having numerous opportunities to place false proof or manipulate the situation in my favor, I refused. I wanted Alex's truth to come out, but I wanted it to come out honestly. Every piece of evidence was real, every witness statement genuine. I wouldn't stoop to Eliza's level of deceit. During one family evening meal, Eliza contradicted herself about the last time she'd seen Alex. First, she said it was the morning he passed, then changed it to 2 days before, then back to that morning. My parents exchanged worried glances across the table. The faults in her story were becoming impossible to overlook. Mr. Y agreed to meet me secretly at an eatery 3 cities away. He was shaking as he told me everything. Eliza had been with him the night before Alex passed, begging him to leave town with her. She'd said Alex was getting suspicious, that her scheme was failing. She'd cried about being trapped, about needing money to start over. Mr. Y had refused to help her and she'd left in a rage. Eliza's carefully maintained public image began cracking. Sam, Mrs. Finch, and Mia started comparing observations at the grocery facility, their quiet conversations drawing attention. Other neighbors mentioned strange things they'd noticed. Eliza taking long phone calls in her personal transport, meeting with unknown individuals at odd hours. The way she'd smile when she thought no one was looking. A clear routine emerged through everyone's observations. Eliza targeted young individuals with life payout plans and families with wealth. She claimed mistreatment when questioned, used the pregnancy to gain sympathy, and always positioned herself as the injured party. The same story, different families, different identifiers. Rhea's family offered to pay for a legal representative consultation. Her mother had become invested in helping after Eliza's attempted manipulation. The legal representative listened to our evidence and said that while official charges would be difficult without more proof, the family could certainly take non-official action to protect their property. My unlisted blog gained popularity among Alex's friends. They started sharing their own strange encounters with Eliza, how she'd pumped them for information about Alex's financial situation, how she'd tried to isolate him from his support network, how different Alex had seemed in his final weeks. The comment section became a record of small details that painted a damning picture. When confronted about time discrepancies during dinner, Eliza lost control for just a moment. She blurted out that Alex was going to leave her with nothing, then quickly blamed it on pregnancy changes. But the harm was done. My parents heard the fury in her voice, saw the calculation in her eyes. My parents finally apologized for not listening to me sooner. Mom admitted she'd suspected something was off, but wanted so badly to believe in the child, in having a piece of Alex still with them. She'd chosen the comfortable falsehood over the difficult reality, and now she was seeing the cost of that choice. Eliza realized she was losing control. I watched from my window as she moved back and forth in the external area, making frantic phone calls to unknown numbers. She started packing valuable items from around the apartment into containers in her room. Alex's timepiece, Mom's ornamentation that had been put away for safekeeping, electronic devices that could be easily sold. Mr. Y's sister confirmed what we'd suspected. Dan Smith was her companion's brother, and the routine was identical. Same substances, same staged tragic accident, same pregnant companion who disappeared when questions got too inconvenient. 2 deaths, 2 families devastated, and Eliza had almost succeeded twice. I warned Mr. Y that he might be Eliza's next target if she couldn't salvage her current situation. He agreed to record any conversations with her going forward. Eliza called him crying, begging for help, saying the family had turned against her. He recorded everything, including her admission that she needed money to disappear. Alex's friends created a group chat to share evidence: Sam's monitoring footage, Mia's drug facility records, Mrs. Finch's testimony, Ken's communication logs. It all painted a picture of a woman who had systematically planned Alex's passing. The timeline was damning when laid out sequentially. Eliza's attempts to turn the family against me backfired spectacularly. My parents discovered she'd been intercepting electronic messages, concealing financial statements, and rerouting Alex's mail to a private box she controlled. She'd been slowly draining his accounts, small amounts that wouldn't trigger alerts but added up over time. The real conclusive proof came when Dad found Alex's tragic accident note in Eliza's jewelry box. She'd forgotten to destroy it, probably keeping it as insurance, but the handwriting was wrong. It used phrases from Alex's journals but lacked his natural flow. Dad knew his son's handwriting better than anyone, and this wasn't it. Extended family members started reaching out to apologize. Uncle Ron admitted Eliza had been feeding him falsehoods about my emotional stability for months, playing on his concern to build a network of people who would support her version of events. He felt sick when he realized how he'd been manipulated. Dan's family had hired a private investigator after his death. They shared the report with us, and the similarities were undeniable. Same pattern of isolation, same financial exploitation, same convenient tragic accident after increasing life payouts. The investigator had tracked Jenna White's movements after Dan's death. She disappeared for 6 months before emerging as Eliza. Eliza's commitment ceremony planning became increasingly desperate. She needed legal rights before the truth fully emerged. She booked locations, ordered floral arrangements, sent announcements, all while maintaining the facade of the grieving companion honoring Alex's memory. But her rush to lock down legal status was transparent. During gown shopping for the ceremony, Mom saw Eliza's true nature emerge. When the sales clerk made a minor error, Eliza erupted in fury, making a scene about incompetent service and threatening to destroy the shop's reputation online. The mask had slipped completely, revealing the calculating aggressor beneath. I realized the full scope of Eliza's plan. If she married Dad, she'd have access to everything: the apartment, the financial accounts, the life payout plans on our entire family. We'd all become potential targets. The woman who'd succeeded twice wouldn't hesitate to try again if it meant financial gain. Instead of confronting Eliza with aggression, I presented the evidence to my parents calmly and methodically. I let the facts speak for themselves: the timeline, the witnesses, the documentation. There was no emotion in my presentation, just reality laid bare. It was more powerful than any accusation. One by one, family members began refusing to attend the rushed commitment ceremony. They cited concerns about timing, the need to honor Alex's memory properly, discomfort with the circumstances. Eliza watched her carefully constructed plan crumble as her support system evaporated. The documented evidence became undeniable. Eliza's own words and recorded conversations with Mr. Y condemned her. She'd admitted to choosing Alex because his family had money and he was easily controlled. She'd laughed about how simple it was to manipulate grieving families. She'd bragged about her previous success with Dan. My parents told Eliza the ceremony was postponed indefinitely. She maintained her sweet facade, but I saw rage flash in her eyes. She knew the game was almost over, but she wasn't giving up yet. Aggressors like Eliza always had one more move to play. Eliza made a last desperate manipulation attempt. She claimed she was having complications with the pregnancy, needed immediate financial assistance for medical care. She produced fake facility bills, staged phone calls with medical professionals, even wore a larger prosthetic abdomen to seem further along. Dad asked for proof of the pregnancy complications, real documentation from real medical professionals. Eliza stalled, made excuses, claimed the facility was slow with paperwork, but she couldn't produce anything because there were no complications with a pregnancy that didn't exist with Alex's child. Then Eliza's former companion from before Alex showed up at our apartment. He demanded she return the large sum of money she'd stolen from him, revealed he was the child's actual father. He had paternity test results, financial records showing the theft, proof that Eliza had been planning this deception for over a year. The family rallied around me for the first time since Alex's death. Mom apologized for choosing the comfortable falsehood over the difficult reality about Alex. She'd wanted so badly to believe in the child, in having a piece of her son still with them, that she'd ignored every warning sign. Dan's mother reached out directly. She offered to share their investigation files, promised to support any legal action we chose to take. She'd been waiting 2 years for another family to see through the woman who'd ended her son's life. Finally, she had allies in seeking justice. I presented the complete timeline to a family meeting. 2 victims, same method, same exploitation of grieving families. The pattern was undeniable when laid out clearly. Eliza had refined her technique with each victim, but the core elements remained consistent. Mr. Y provided the final piece of evidence, a recording of Eliza admitting she'd chosen Alex because his family had money and he was easily controlled. She'd laughed about how simple it was to manipulate grieving families, how profitable tragedy could be if you managed it correctly. Mrs. Finch testified to our family that Eliza had specifically asked to borrow her personal transport to visit Alex that night, claiming she needed to talk to him about the child. The vehicle was returned hours later with dirt on the tires from the unpaved road leading to Alex's living space complex. Mrs. Finch had kept quiet out of respect for our grieving family, but now she understood the significance of that detail. The complete evidence file painted a devastating picture. Eliza's pattern stretched back at least 2 years, with 2 confirmed deaths, and Mr. Y as a potential third victim if her current plan had failed. The methodology was consistent. Target vulnerable young individuals with financial assets, claim pregnancy, exploit grieving families, then disappear when questions arose. Alex's data storage device was exactly where his letter said it would be, hidden in the spare tire compartment of his personal transport. The files contained sound recordings of Eliza medicating his beverage, photos of marks she'd inflicted on him, and a detailed timeline of her aggression. He'd been building a case to protect himself, documenting everything meticulously. The final recording was dated the night before he passed. Eliza's voice clear as she threatened to claim he'd harmed her if he tried to leave. Our family gathered in the communal space for what would be the final confrontation. Dad served Eliza a formal eviction notice, with Uncle Ron standing as witness. The document gave her 24 hours to vacate the premises. Eliza's face cycled through emotions: shock, rage, then calculated tears as she tried one last manipulation. She pulled out her phone, threatening to call the authorities, and claimed Dad had assaulted her. Her fingers hovered over the emergency number as she described the story she'd tell, how he'd grabbed her, pushed her, threatened the child, the same tactic she'd used on Alex and Dan. My phone chose that exact moment to power down. The recording of Eliza's confession to Mr. Y was on it, the one piece of evidence that could immediately disprove her claims. The family wavered, uncertainty creeping back in as Eliza's tears intensified. She clutched her stomach, wailing about stress on the child, about Alex's family turning against his child. Mom stepped forward, her face set with determination. She pointed at Eliza's middle, where the pregnancy abdomen had mysteriously vanished since yesterday. The prosthetic padding Eliza had been wearing was gone, forgotten in her panic. The supposedly 7-month pregnant woman had a completely flat stomach. While the family argued about next steps, I slipped out the back door and ran to Ria's house. My legs burned as I sprinted through familiar streets, knowing every second counted. Rhea met me at the door with her computer already open, the digital storage backup of evidence ready. Her mother was on the phone with Dan's family, coordinating the final pieces. Dan's mother had been waiting for this moment. She sent our entire family electronic mail list a comprehensive file, the private investigator's report documenting Eliza's identity changes, financial records showing Dan's drained accounts, witness statements from his friends about Eliza's behavior before his death. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Eliza returned from the local security office 2 hours later to find our entire family assembled in the communal space, plus Dan's mother, who'd driven 3 hours to be there. The room was silent as she walked in, her confidence faltering as she recognized the woman whose son she'd ended. Each person presented their evidence methodically. Sam showed the monitoring footage of her laughing after her performance at Alex's work. Mia presented the drug facility records and timeline of the sedative purchase. Mr. Y's recorded confession played from multiple phones simultaneously, his voice shaking as he described Eliza's manipulation. Mrs. Finch detailed the borrowed vehicle, the timeline that placed Eliza at Alex's living space when he passed. The final revelation came from Dan's mother. Eliza hadn't just ended Dan for his payout money. She'd only received a partial payout because the insurance company had been suspicious of the circumstances. She'd needed another victim, another family to exploit, which led her to Alex. The pattern would have continued with Mr. Y or someone else if we hadn't stopped her. Alex's friend who worked at a legal firm arrived with a document that changed everything. Alex had updated his will a week before his death, leaving everything to me instead of Eliza. He'd known something might happen, had taken steps to protect his assets from her. The document was properly witnessed and formalized, completely legal and binding. The choice fell to me. Pursue official charges that would mean a long, traumatic trial, or let Eliza leave with the promise that we had enough evidence to ensure her conviction if she ever contacted our family again. I looked at my parents' exhausted faces, at Dan's mother who'd been fighting this battle for 2 years, at all the people who'd risked their relationships to help expose the truth. I chose to document everything with the authorities, but asked them to prioritize our family's healing over a prolonged legal battle. The detective took our statements, collected the evidence, and assured us they'd be investigating both deaths. Dan's case would be reopened with this new information. Justice might be slow, but it would come. Eliza packed her belongings under the watchful eyes of our entire family. She tried one final manipulation, claiming she really was pregnant, and we were forcing out a pregnant woman. No one even responded. The one who cried wolf had exhausted all credibility. Her tears were met with stony silence. When she attempted to take Alex's computer, claiming it contained photos of their relationship, Dad physically stepped between her and Alex's room. He pulled out his phone, ready to call the authorities himself if she didn't leave immediately. Eliza's mask finally dropped completely, her face twisting with rage. She turned to Mom, trying to appeal to maternal instinct, sobbing about being alone and pregnant. Mom stood firm beside Dad, their united front unshakable. Even Mom, who'd wanted so desperately to believe in Alex's child, saw through the manipulation now. The evidence was too overwhelming, the falsehoods too numerous. The authorities arrived to escort Eliza off the property after she refused to leave voluntarily. 2 officers stood by as she loaded her personal transport, ensuring she only took her personal belongings. They served her with a no-contact order. If she came within 500 feet of any family member, she'd be arrested immediately. As her personal transport pulled away, Eliza's true nature showed through the driver's window. She looked directly at me, her expression cold and calculating. Her lips moved clearly enough for me to read them. Alex was weak, just like you. Then she was gone, rear lights disappearing down the street. Our family immediately changed every lock in the apartment, updated all security codes, and installed a comprehensive camera system. We created a safety plan in case Eliza attempted to return for retaliation. The security company noted our address for priority response. We weren't taking any chances. The next weeks were a blur of activity. I started seeing a legitimate grief counselor, one with no connection to Eliza or her network. The therapist helped me process not just Alex's death, but the months of psychological torment that followed. Slowly, I began to separate my sorrow for my sibling from the trauma Eliza had inflicted. Alex's real final message was in a hidden file on the data storage device, a video recorded the week before he passed, showing his bruised arms and exhausted face. But his message was clear and strong. He looked directly into the camera and spoke to me, telling me to trust myself, that I was stronger than I knew. He'd known I'd be the one to find the truth. 6 months later, our family gathered at the riverside Alex had loved. This time it was for a proper memorial, not Eliza's distorted gender announcement. His real friends were there, the ones who'd helped expose the truth. Dan's family stood with us, two families united by tragedy, but also by justice. I spoke about the real Alex, the sibling who made silly jokes when I was sad, who listened without judging, who hid treats in our secret spot during our parents' fights. Not the false version Eliza had created, but the person we'd actually lost. The grief was still there, would always be there, but it was clean now, not poisoned by falsehoods. Eliza faced investigation in both deaths. The detective called periodically with updates. They'd found more evidence, other families who'd had suspicious encounters with her under different names. The investigation was expanding, but I tried not to focus on it. Justice was important, but healing was more important. My financial security was restored from Alex's estate. The money Eliza had manipulated from my parents was slowly recovered through insurance claims and legal processes. It wouldn't bring Alex back, but at least his final wishes were being honored. He'd wanted me to succeed, to have the future he wouldn't get to see. The apartment felt different now. Alex's room remained closed most days, but sometimes I'd go in and sit with his things, the journals Eliza hadn't managed to destroy, his gaming setup, the silly friendship bracelet I'd found hidden in his desk drawer. The pain of missing him was constant, but no longer complicated by doubt or manipulation. I returned to my professional life with my head held high. The whispers about my emotional crisis faded as the truth spread through the community. The HR representative apologized for not seeing through Eliza's falsehoods, for letting the system be used against me. My manager removed all the documentation Eliza had submitted from my record. Rhea remained my fiercest ally through everything. Her family had essentially adopted me during the worst months, providing safe harbor when my own home became a battlefield. Our friendship had been tested by Eliza's manipulations, but emerged stronger. She'd believed me when no one else would. The extended family slowly rebuilt trust. Uncle Ron became one of my strongest supporters, furious at how he'd been manipulated into enabling Eliza's aggression. Aunt Pat sent long letters apologizing for not questioning Eliza's narrative. The family chat group, once poisoned by Eliza's falsehoods, became a source of support again. Mr. Wise struggled with guilt over his role in everything. He'd been another of Eliza's victims, manipulated and used, but he still felt responsible for not speaking up sooner. He started attending the same sorrow support group, working through his own trauma. His testimony had been crucial in exposing Eliza, and I made sure he knew how grateful we were. Sam from Alex's work became a regular visitor. He'd carry guilt too, about not speaking up when Alex was around, but I reminded him that Eliza had fooled everyone. He shared stories about Alex at work, funny moments and inside jokes I'd never heard. It helped to know Alex had been happy sometimes, even near the end. Mrs. Finch adopted me as an honorary relative. She'd check on me daily, bringing food and sitting quietly when words weren't needed. Her house remained a refuge, a place where I could exist without the weight of everything that had happened. She'd lost her partner young and understood grief in a way that didn't require explanation. The blog I'd created to document evidence transformed into something different. Other families reached out, sharing their own experiences with people like Eliza, not for public knowledge or attention, but for connection and validation. We created a private support network, sharing resources and warning signs. If we could prevent even one family from experiencing what we had, Alex's death wouldn't be entirely meaningless. Mom and Dad slowly rebuilt their relationship with me. The guilt they carried for not believing me, for enabling Eliza's abuse, was immense. Family counseling with a legitimate therapist this time helped us navigate the complicated emotions. They'd been victims too, manipulated by a master aggressor, but that didn't erase the harm caused by their disbelief. Alex's birthday came and went. This time, I attended the Arctic Fox's concert as planned, screaming the lyrics to his favorite songs. Ria came with me, and we cried heavily through the entire set list. It wasn't the celebration I'd originally planned with Alex, but it honored him in a way Eliza's gender announcement never could have. The investigation into Eliza continued in the background. Detective Brown called occasionally with updates. They'd connected her to at least 3 suspicious deaths across different regions. She'd been doing this for years, perfecting her technique with each victim. The full scope might never be known, but at least she'd been stopped. I continued with my life and career. The recovery of my stability and focus was complete once the psychological warfare ended. The restored financial security felt bittersweet. Alex should have been with me, teasing me about my career path. Instead, I made my decisions with his memory as my guide, choosing the engineering sector he'd always said I'd excel in. The night before a major career move, I visited Alex's grave one last time, not with emotional distress, but standing strong. I told him about everything. How we'd exposed Eliza, how the family had healed, how his preparation had saved us all. I promised to live the life he'd wanted for me, to be happy despite the grief. Dan's mother sent a final message as I prepared for the move. Eliza had been arrested in another region under yet another name, caught in the middle of targeting a new victim. This time, she wouldn't escape justice. The combined evidence from our families and others she'd targeted would ensure she never destroyed another family. My new living space felt strange at first, too quiet without the constant chaos of the past year. But as I unpacked, I found Alex's friendship bracelet tucked into my belongings, with a note from Mom. She'd saved it from the container Eliza had tried to donate, keeping it safe until I was ready. I wore it every day after that, a reminder of the sibling who'd loved me enough to protect me even after death. The new colleagues had no idea about my story, and I preferred it that way. I wasn't the adult whose sibling died or the one who'd fought a psychopath. I was just another person figuring out my career. The anonymity felt like freedom after months of being watched and judged. Late at night, when the grief hit hardest, I'd replay Alex's video message. His faith in my strength had been justified. I'd fought for his truth when everyone doubted me, exposed a killer when the world believed her tears. He'd known I could do it, had trusted me with his final secret. That trust had saved our family. The truth had finally surfaced, just as Alex knew it would. Exposing Eliza was the hardest thing I've ever done, but Alex prepared me for it. He trusted my strength. Now that it's over, I'm focusing on healing and my future. I'd love to hear your thoughts on which piece of evidence you found the most shocking. Did you see Eliza's mask slip? Share your reactions, like this video, and join our community as we turn this trauma into action.